OSHA defines scaffold as any temporary elevated platform, supported or suspended, and its supporting structure, including points of anchorage used for supporting employees or materials, or both. The United States Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that over 4,500 injuries and 60 deaths are happening every year due to scaffold-related incidents. And these numbers are solid proof that construction companies must properly construct, assemble, and disassemble scaffolding materials safely and securely. There are two types of scaffold, according to OSHA. One is the supported scaffold. This scaffold consists of one or more platforms supported by rigid load-bearing members such as fabricated or welded frame scaffolds, aerial lifts, scissor lifts, ladder jack scaffold, large area scaffold, mast climbing scaffold, mobile scaffold or what they call the rolling tower, pump jack scaffold, system scaffold, top plate scaffold, and tube and coupler scaffold. The second type of scaffold is the suspended scaffold. This scaffold is usually built with one or more platforms suspended by ropes or other non-rigid overhead support. There are different types of suspended scaffold as well, such as adjustable suspension scaffold, catenary scaffold, and float scaffold. Scaffolding should not be built by just anyone who works on the construction site. It should be someone trained, certified, and authorized. A competent person must know not just to assemble and dismantle scaffolds, but that person should know how to identify existing and predictable scaffold hazards and how to properly eliminate them. A competent person to assemble and dismantle scaffold should be responsible for supervising the construction or any movement of all scaffolding to ensure it is set up as designed per the scaffold manufacturer standards, supervising the disassembly of scaffolding as well as the movement of any scaffolding to ensure these activities are done safely. Must also inspect scaffolding as soon as it has been set up, as well as before first use on each shift to identify any hazard that needs to be corrected before employee use. Additional inspections by the competent person must be performed after any risk-increasing incident. Scaffold must have a well-built scaffolding system. The competent person must make sure that it is functioning and operated safely according to the manufacturer's guidelines. Maintenance of scaffold must be properly observed as required by the manufacturer. Any adjustments or repairs to the scaffolding must be overseen by a competent person. The scaffold has a low capacity or the weight that it can hold. The competent person must make sure that it doesn't exceed the capacity, and the competent person must have the right to remove or prevent workers from using any scaffolding found to be unstable until the hazard has been repaired or the scaffolding is removed from service. The hazards of scaffolding are slip, trip, and fall, falling objects, electrical contact, scaffold instability, and bad planking or movement. These are the safety measures that are very helpful to keep you safe from working with scaffold. Scaffold must be assembled, repaired, maintained, and dismantled by a competent person who undergoes proper training. Wear the proper personal protective equipment such as a hard hat, harness, and many more. Keep the scaffold free of obstruction when used. Inspection of scaffold materials must be done regularly by a competent person. The scaffold should not exceed the load capacity that it can support. The presence of a guardrail or any other fall protection, such as a fall arrest system or travel restraint system, must be used on a scaffold platform that is 10 or more feet above the ground or lower level. Never climb the cross bracing on a scaffold as a means of accessing a scaffold platform, because it isn't designed for that purpose. And do not climb up or down a scaffold frame unless allowed by the competent person, because scaffold frames are not designed for climbing on, even though it may appear they are. Now, what is the purpose of scaffolding tags? Well, as we talk about safety, These tags are used to indicate that it is safe or not safe to use. Scaffolding safety tags can be used on any type of scaffolding occurring at any access point. There are two types. Red tags. Be aware of this tag because it symbolizes the scaffold is unsafe or the structure isn't completely finished. Then it should not be used. And green tags. These are like a go signal that indicates that scaffolding is safe and ready to use. Although these tags aren't required by OSHA, it is still recognized by the said organization. Here are the do's and don'ts of scaffolding safety. Do get proper training before involving yourself in scaffold-related work. Do inform your workers if there are changes made to the scaffold. Do wear PPE such as a hard hat when working close to a scaffold area. Do consider co-workers working above, below you, and beside you on the scaffold. And do inspect the scaffold for damage and repair it as soon as possible. Don't make the scaffold area too chaotic because materials or tools scattered could cause someone to fall off or it could be tripped on. Don't overload the scaffold. Don't use a scaffold if it seems damaged or unstable. Notify a supervisor and get the scaffold inspected as soon as possible. Don't try to repair a scaffold on your own if you're not trained, certified, and authorized. And don't walk on scaffolds covered in snow, mud, or excess water. Remove all obstructions before using the scaffold. The scaffolding work must be performed only by an experienced and trained employee chosen by the competent person.